Hi, welcome to Luna Listens to Books channel. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe. Now the story begins. When I stumbled upon a post from my husband's ex, Colleen, claiming Alexander is her sperm donor, rage consumed me. In a desperate confrontation, I lost everything, a heartbreaking miscarriage that left me shattered. In my pain, I lashed out, publicly sharing my loss and announcing my divorce. But Alexander wasn't ready to let me go. With our families entwined in a mafia legacy, his threats hung heavily over my head. Determined to reclaim my life, I reached out to Colleen's legal husband, setting off a series of events that landed Colleen behind bars and made Alexander realize his real feelings for me. He begged to be back together, but I refused him, leaving him behind as a memory. Just when I thought I'd closed the door on my past, I reconnected with Dominic, my childhood love, who offered me a chance to heal. Colleen Homer, my husband's ex, posted an ultrasound photo on Facebook with the caption, "Grateful to my sperm donor." I thought all hope was lost. But now look, I am having a baby. That donor, my husband Alexander. I forced myself to hit the like button and comment, "That's great, happy for you." Inside, I felt anything but happy. Moments later, Alexander called. Frantic. "Veronica, please don't overreact. I was just helping Colleen out, okay? Don't make this worse." I ended the call, too numb to respond. For the first time, divorce felt like a real option. I gently stroked my belly, taking a deep breath as a profound sense of regret consumed me. I wanted to apologize to the tiny life within me, explaining that your father does not seem to accept you. However, as soon as the words formed on my lips, tears welled up, soaking my cheeks. I had intended to surprise Alexander with the news of my pregnancy on his birthday. I was 2 months along, and this has been a long-awaited moment. Unfortunately, Alexander had shown little interest in intimacy and had always expressed aversion to the idea of children, considering them a burden. He even urged me to use birth control. Given our similar backgrounds in a dangerous, illegal environment, I could empathize with his belief that children could be a source of vulnerability. Then just the other day, I saw him researching baby things, creating spreadsheets for expectant moms and newborns. Foolishly, I believed that he was finally accepting our future and warming up to the idea of having a child together. Now I realized he wasn't preparing for me at all, he was doing it for Colleen. That evening, Alexander came home earlier than usual. He called for me from the hallway, but I stayed silent in the bedroom. After a while, I heard the shower, then felt him slip into bed beside me. I felt the warmth of his hand as it crept onto my waist, the first time he had taken the initiative to be affectionate towards me. He pressed closer, nuzzling my neck as he tried to mend our relationship. It was as if he were trying to reignite the passion that had dwindled between us. But I ignored his advances, turning away and closing my eyes. He leaned closer, whispering sweetly in my ear. "Nothing happened between us, sweetheart. It was purely science. We didn't even touch each other during the process." "Does it have to be you?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Couldn't someone else do it?" "It had to be me," he sighed. "But once the baby's born, I won't have anything more to do with her. You understand, right?" My silence must have seemed like acceptance because he moved closer, trying to be intimate. I pushed his hand away, harder this time. "What more do you want, Veronica?" he snapped. "This alliance is important. If this is what it takes for security between the families, then I'll make the sacrifice. Why can't you understand that?" I sat up, my voice steady but pained. "Do you really think I don't understand? There are other ways to secure this connection. Isn't her father your godfather? Isn't that enough?" "It's not enough," he said sternly. "You know the rules, Veronica. We need more reassurance." I smiled sadly, shaking my head. "Or maybe this isn't about reassurance. Maybe it's about her. After all this time, do you still..." He slapped me before I could finish. "Stop acting like a jealous wife. I could have kept this from you, spared you the pain, but I was honest because that's what a husband should do. And now you're making me the bad guy." I touched my stinging cheek, shaking. "You hit me?" He grabbed his coat, clearly ready to leave. "Where are you going?" I asked, following him to the door. "We're not done talking. Are you going to see her?" He pulled away from me. "Didn't I choose you after all these years?" What do you mean?" He didn't answer, just gave me a sneer. Dread washed over me as I reached for him, but he pushed me away. Harder this time. I stumbled onto the edge of the cabinet, the sharp pain jolting through me. Alexander didn't help me. He just looked at me, maybe there was guilt in his eyes, but then he slammed the door behind him, leaving me alone. I laughed bitterly at the mess my marriage had become, at how blind I've been. Apologies meant nothing to him, they were just words to get me to forgive him. And I always did it because I loved him. But now, I'm paying the price for that love. As I struggled to my feet, a dull ache radiated through my body. My thoughts were clouded with the weight of all we've been through, the lies, the betrayal. But then, something pulled me back to the present, something warm and wet. I glanced down, and my breath caught in my throat. Blood. Everything around me blurred, the room spinning as panic sets in. The next morning, Alexander didn't return home. I wasn't surprised to find him missing. It wasn't unusual. His assistant, Edward Seville, called multiple times looking for him, saying he hadn't arrived at the office. How would I know? He usually avoided dealing with me. Putting it all together, there was only one place I could think of. Somewhere with Colleen, probably an OBGYN's office. I was also going somewhere. After making an appointment, I took a cab to the hospital. I knew that my baby was no longer inside me. I wanted to rush to the hospital last night, but I couldn't muster the strength. Since Alexander didn't want the baby, it was better for it not to be born than to face such a cruel reality. The doctor sadly announced that I had miscarried. With a heavy heart, I completed the necessary tests to ensure my body was okay, and then I went to settle the bills. As I was finishing, I bumped into two familiar figures, my husband and his ex. Alexander quickly gave me an accusing look, almost scolding. "Veronica, what are you doing here?" I didn't answer. Instead, I shifted my eyes to his ex. She avoided my gaze and tried to reason with my husband. "Alex, don't speak to her like that. Why can't she be here? Maybe she also wanted to see the baby." Colleen looked at me innocently as she caressed her still flat belly. "Veronica must be here just to check on us, right?" Her words really bothered me. I could only pretend to laugh and respond, "Yeah, you're right. How could I not be here?" I gave Colleen a meaningful look. After all, it's the baby of my own husband. I should ensure that it is growing well. Colleen suddenly paled and defended. "I can't know. Please don't misunderstand." "Oh, did I misunderstand something?" I scoffed. "Aside from it not being in my womb, isn't it Alexander's child? As his legal wife, I should have a say on this. What do you think?" Alexander intervened, shoving me away in the process. "What are you doing, Veronica? Stop making trouble. If you want to check the child, then just check it. Don't say anything unnecessary." I had just had a miscarriage, so his slight shove was enough to knock me to the ground. I winced as I felt the dull pain creeping up in my abdomen. Colleen came forward to help me, but out of Alexander's sight, she gave me a mocking smile. I shoved her away, feeling a wave of disgust. I tried to steady myself against the wall, but she collapsed beside me, clutching her stomach and crying out dramatically, as if in pain. She even had the nerve to look at me with hurt in her eyes, as though questioning why I'd pushed her after she'd tried to help me up. Alexander rushed to Colleen's side, helping her up before turning to me, fury in his eyes. "If anything happens to her, Veronica, you'll regret it." Pain surged through me, cold sweat beading on my skin as I watched him care for her. I couldn't tell if the ache came from the physical strain or the emptiness inside me. In that moment, I realized it was probably for the best that the baby was gone, because a man who couldn't love his wife would never love his child. When I returned to the villa, I logged onto Facebook, desperate to vent to my friends. But before I could, Colleen's latest post caught my eye, a photo of a man's back. I recognized it instantly. It was Alexander. Her caption read, "Having a man who loves me makes me feel so safe." The comments were all from his friends. "Sebastian, go. That doesn't look like your husband's back, huh? Nash Dan, nice one. You've won back your goddess." Lester Morris, "So this is the sperm donor. Congrats." Alexander tried to rein in his friends with a thinly veiled reprimand. "Alexander, come on boys, I'm just helping out. You trying to drive my wife away?" His buddies liked the comment and fell silent except for Sebastian. "Sebastian, don't act like that. She's not worth it. You've been with Colleen since high school, and everyone knows you can't let her go. Stop fooling yourself." Sebastian, Alexander's lifelong best friend, never liked me. To him, I wasn't good enough, never as pretty or perfect as Colleen. He made sure I knew it. But now, with thoughts of divorce weighing heavily on my heart, I felt a chilling detachment. I typed my response, "Don't worry, that'll happen soon." Then I uploaded 2 photos, my ultrasound and the miscarriage certificate. Tears blurred my vision as I hit send, a haunting ache settling deep within me, leaving me to wonder if I'd ever be whole again. My caption read, "My dad didn't want me, so my mom let me go. I hope you're happy." Within moments of posting the photos, my phone erupted with notifications. Messages poured in from family, my parents and in-laws, but none from Alexander. I waited an hour, foolishly hoping he might reach out, thinking there could still be a chance for reconciliation. His silence, however, only deepened my regret. Finally, I texted my mom, "I'll be home later. I'll explain everything then." I hurriedly packed my things and drove to my parents' house. As soon as I walked in, they cornered me with a barrage of questions. Mom's eyes were puffy and red from crying, and even Dad looked shaken, though he tried to mask it. When I shared the news about Alexander's sperm donation, Mom pulled me into a tight hug, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed, "I warned you he'd hurt you." Dad remained silent, smoking a cigarette, his hand resting on the coon tucked in his waistband. After a long pause, he finally muttered, "Good riddance." My parents had never liked Alexander. I had pursued him for 7 years, and when he finally agreed to date me, I ignored all the warnings, believing I could make him fall in love. I was clearly mistaken. I learned the hard way that love cannot be forced. A decade of my life taught me that painful truth all too well. A day later, I saw Alexander pulling into my parents' driveway. He jumped out of the car and stormed over. The men guarding the house moved to stop him, but I waved them off, letting him approach. "Veronica, what the hell is going on?" He looked me over, his eyes landing on my stomach. "You had a miscarriage. How did this happen?" I stared at him. "Naman, why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?" His questions made me nauseous, but I wasn't in the mood to argue. Ignoring his anger, I turned to close the door. He grabbed my arm, gripping it tightly. "Is this about Colleen? I told you, once the baby's born, I'm cutting ties with her. I've made sacrifices for us. What more do you want?" His shamelessness hit me like a punch, and I couldn't hold back. I slapped him hard. "I'm not worth it, right? You should find someone better. The divorce papers are on the way. Sign them." I yanked my arm free, signaling the guards my father had left to protect me. Alexander glanced at them warily and stepped back. As I walked away, I heard him yell, "If you leave now, don't expect me to take you back. Come back, not a chance." In fact, I should thank him. This whole mess made me realize how much better off I am without him. For weeks, Alexander still hadn't signed the divorce papers. It wasn't until my father threatened him that he finally texted me. "I'll come by tomorrow, make Sebastian and the others apologize. Stop overreacting. I'm tired of this. Don't make me choose between you and Colleen." Look, I said I'd distance myself, but she's pregnant and needs help. You know her husband's not around." As always, Alexander pretended to be torn, but his actions spoke louder than his words. He consistently chose Colleen. We'd had this argument countless times. He always found an excuse, claiming he stayed close to her for the benefit of her mafia family, that without her connections, his family's business would collapse. Same story, different day. When Alexander noticed I hadn't replied, he called me right away. "Darling, I've booked a restaurant for everyone to apologize. Please don't make a scene." I replied casually, "Is Colleen coming?" "Of course," he said. "So how about it?" "Fine," I answered. "But if they want to apologize, it better be sincere, not just for show." "I know. I've already told them." He paused, his hesitation evident. "Should I drive you tomorrow?" "No need," I countered. "It's better to handle this separately." Alexander hesitated, clearly wanting to argue, but sensing my resolve, he reluctantly accepted my decision. The next day, I arrived late to find Alexander and his friends waiting, dissatisfaction etched on their faces. Wasting no time, I slapped the divorce papers into Alexander's hands before he could voice a complaint. His shock was palpable as he read the documents, his face flushing with anger. "I told you they'd apologize. Why are you still bringing this up?" Colleen, seated beside him, was in tears as she tried to soothe him. "It's my fault. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't have had a miscarriage, and you wouldn't be divorcing." "How could it possibly be your fault?" Alexander frowned, shifting his focus between us. "Is this some sort of joke? Are you trying to threaten me?" Before I could respond, Colleen seized the moment, brandishing a knife and pointing it at her stomach. "Then let's not have this baby. I feel guilty." Alexander rushed to intervene. "Veronica, how sick are you?" blaming an unborn child. Exhaustion washed over me as I sat down. My expression was void of emotion. "Since you won't sign the divorce papers, I've sought help from someone," I said coolly. They all stared at me, curiosity piqued. I smiled and gestured to the side, where a man stepped into view. His stoic demeanor radiated danger. Why are you here? Colleen stammered, her eyes wide at the sight of her husband. Leonard is no ordinary man. He was a powerful figure in the underworld, presenting himself as a gentleman while harboring a ruthless nature beneath the surface. Although he married Colleen out of obligation, he treated her with the utmost care and respect. While he was overseas on business, I sent him a message revealing his wife's affair. The moment he learned of her betrayal, his fury knew no bounds. Without hesitation, he dropped everything and made his way back with one clear purpose in mind: to deal harshly with both Colleen and her lover. Well, I thought he should be here, so I sent him the address, I said with a casual shrug. My husband said you're all here to apologize, right? Don't you think you owe your husband one too? Veronica, Alexander snapped. I told you, don't make a scene. Am I making a scene? I ignored his frustration and turned to Colleen. What are you waiting for? Apologizing to me isn't enough. He's here now. Tell him. The room went eerily quiet. Then, a soft chuckle broke the tension. Leonard's. His smile was charming, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. No need to apologize, Leonard said calmly as he removed his expensive watch and slipped it into his pocket. He gave Colleen a pointed look. You knew the consequences the moment you made your choice. Colleen paled, stepping back in fear. What do you mean? She stammered. Suddenly, several imposing men appeared, surrounding us. More of Leonard's men stood outside the venue, their presence undeniable. Alexander instinctively pulled Colleen behind him, his face tight with regret and dread. Look, I'm sorry. This is on me, Alexander said, his voice shaky with desperation. I was the one who went along with this. If you're mad, hit me, not her. She's pregnant. Don't hurt her. Leonard scoffed, a mocking smirk on his face. I don't care. If I hurt her or not, what's it for you? You're just a friend, right? Alexander quickly retorted, Hey, nothing happened between us if that's what you're thinking. Don't twist it into something it wasn't. She didn't cheat on you, man. Leonard's chuckle was low and sinister. Then, without warning, he threw a punch straight into Alexander's gut. Alexander doubled over, gasping as the force knocked the wind out of him. You think you can fool me? Leonard sneered, landing another punch that sent Alexander stumbling back. I've dealt with all kinds of people much smarter than you. Do you really think I'd believe that nonsense? Colleen, watching Alexander get pummeled, rushed forward. She slapped Leonard across the face, her voice trembling with anger. Enough, this is your fault too. You think I wanted this? You're the reason I had to, since you're impotent. Leonard's eyes burned with fury. Was that so? Why him? Out of everyone, why not anyone else? Colleen's voice cracked as she yelled back. Why would I go looking for a stranger's sperm? I wanted my beloved's. Her words hung heavily in the air, silencing the room completely. Leonard gave Colleen a cold, unfeeling glance before raising his hand. Without a second thought, he slapped her hard enough that the sound echoed through the room. The force was brutal, and Colleen crumpled to the ground, landing awkwardly on her stomach. She groaned in pain, her face twisted in agony, before passing out moments later. Alexander, still reeling from Leonard's earlier punches, saw Colleen fall unconscious. His eyes widened in shock, panic flooding in his face. Without thinking, he lunged at Leonard, fueled by desperation, despite clearly being no match for him. Sebastian and the others joined in. Panic overtook the room as one of them pulled out a gun, the tension snapping like a taut wire. The first gunshot rang out, sending everyone into chaos. Sensing a fight about to break out, I made a quiet exit, uninterested in getting caught in the chaos. Shouts erupted behind me, followed by the sharp cracks of gunfire and the crash of furniture. I didn't look back, not wanting to see the aftermath. Later, an anonymous message buzzed on my phone, a picture of Alexander and his friends, their faces swollen with bruises, beaten black and blue. Leonard hadn't held back. After that day, I never saw them again. The last I heard, Leonard was divorcing Colleen. The news sent shockwaves through the underworld, but thankfully it didn't affect me. Maybe this was Leonard's way of settling the score for the trouble his wife had caused. Now, I was on my way to meet with the lawyer handling my case. As I stepped out of the caffeine and slid into the driver's seat, I felt something cold and hard press against the back of my head. A familiar metallic click sounded near my ear, and a warm breath whispered against my neck. Going somewhere, a familiar voice sounded, sending a chill down my spine. Colleen sat in the back seat, holding a gun, the cold metal nozzle pressed firmly against my scalp. I didn't dare move. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat louder than the last, but I forced myself to stay calm. Slowly, I glanced at the rearview mirror, catching sight of her reflection. She looked completely unhinged. Her face was a mess of bruises, her hair wild and tangled, but what stood out most were her eyes, a crazed glint that sent a shiver down my spine. She wasn't just angry. She had lost her mind. "Are you happy now?" she hissed, pressing the gun harder against my head, her eerie giggle filling the small space of the car. "Leonard served me divorce papers, and his men. They're after my family. In just a week, everything my father built was in ruins. I was on the run, avoiding the cops. All because of you." Her voice cracked, the gun digging deeper into my scalp as she leaned forward, close enough for me to feel her ragged breath on the back of my neck. "And my baby." Her voice shifted, becoming low and hoarse. "It's gone. My baby was gone. And it was all your fault," she screamed, her words laced with fury and madness. "I will kill you." The cold steel of the gun pressed harder against my skin, and I braced myself, knowing this could be the end. The car door suddenly swung open. Both of us snapped our heads toward the door. Standing there was Alexander, looking just as haggard as Colleen, but at least slightly more presentable. His hair was neatly combed, his clothes were not as disheveled. For a fleeting moment, I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes, as if he believed he'd finally caught a chance to talk to me, perhaps thinking his luck had turned when he spotted my car. But that hopeful expression vanished in an instant. His eyes widened in sheer terror, his face draining of color as he took in the scene. He glanced at me first, then at Colleen, and finally, at the gun pressing against the back of my head. His mouth hung slightly open, frozen in place as if struggling to comprehend the danger unfolding in front of him. "Colleen," he finally breathed, his voice trembling. He stepped forward, his hands raised slightly in a futile gesture of peace. "What are you doing?" Colleen's crazed laughter filled the car, low and menacing. She didn't even turn to acknowledge Alexander, her focus locked entirely on me. Her grip on the gun tightened, pressing it harder against my skull, as if she were daring him to make a move. "Colleen, don't do this," he stammered, raising his hands in an attempt to diffuse the tension. "Just put the gun down. We could talk. You didn't have to hurt her." Colleen didn't even flinch. Her grip tightened, and I felt the cold metal press harder against my scalp. My body stiffened, but my hatred for her burned stronger than my fear. She deserved to die after what she did. Colleen spat, her voice dripping with venom. Her eyes gleamed with madness, a twisted smile forming on her lips. Unless, of course, she apologized. Maybe then I'd spare her. I clenched my jaw. Apologize to her? After everything? Alexander glanced at me, panic flashing in his eyes. "Veronica, just apologize," he urged, his voice trembling. "Please, do it for your own safety." My lip curled in disgust. Apologize for what? The idea made my skin crawl. Colleen leaned in, her voice a low, sickening whisper. "Go on. Beg. I'd rather die than beg." That thought burned in my mind, fierce and unyielding, as I refused to let her see even a flicker of weakness. But then, out of nowhere, a screech of tires shattered the tense silence. A car skidded beside us, slamming into the side of my vehicle with a thunderous crash. The impact sent Colleen stumbling, and she lost her grip on the gun. For a split second, disoriented by the chaos, I froze. Then instinct kicked in. I wrenched the door open, desperate to get away. I could see Alexander moving quickly too. He wrestled the gun from Colleen's reach and kicked it across the pavement, sending it sliding several meters away. "Zero iodina 4, darkening into something even more unhinged." She scoffed, her lips curling into a twisted sneer. "Oh, sweetie," she whispered, her voice dripping with pity, "you'll die first." Before I could react, her hand moved faster than I expected. A glint of steel caught my IA fruit knife she must have been hiding. And then, with terrifying precision, she lunged. Pain erupted in my side, sharp and searing. I gasped, the breath knocked out of me, as the knife plunged deep into my flesh. My legs buckled, and I collapsed into Alexander's arms. When I finally opened my eyes, I found myself sprawled on a hospital bed, with Alexander dozing in a chair beside me. Just the sight of him made my blood boil, a surge of anger rising within me. Ignoring the throbbing pain in my side, I reached for the water bottle on the bedside table. My heart raced as I flung the bottle at him without a moment's hesitation. It struck him squarely in the forehead, causing blood to trickle down his face. He jolted awake, confusion etched across his features. For a fleeting second, his brow furrowed in disbelief, but as soon as his eyes landed on me, he rushed over, apologies spilling from his lips. "Veronica, oh darling, I'm so sorry. I didn't think she would try to kill you." Get away from me! I shouted, and the force of my voice pulled at my wound, blood seeping through the fabric of my hospital gown. His face drained color, and in an instant he sprinted out of the room to get a doctor. A doctor assessed my condition and changed the dressing on my wound. As soon as the medical team left, Alexander was back at my side, desperation clinging to him. Veronica, Colleen wasn't herself back then. Can't you try to be a little more understanding of her situation? I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh, the sound laced with mockery. Are you seriously saying she didn't mean to kill me? Disgust dripped from my voice as I shot back. I could have died, Alexander. His eyes flickered with guilt, a flash of regret crossing his features. Please, can you find it in yourself to forgive her? His voice rose in pitch, panic tightening his features. What do you want me to do? Kneel in front of you. I'll do it. The scene felt surreal, almost comical, and I couldn't suppress a raised eyebrow at his desperation. Why are you doing this? What are you hoping to gain from my apology? He hesitated, his gaze darting around the room as if searching for the right words. That! I have a favor to ask you. What do you mean? I narrowed my eyes, bracing myself for whatever was coming next. Why, you know that Leonard has been targeting both our families. After the divorce and the baby, Colleen's family shifted the blame onto me and started pestering and threatening my family. In a moment of sheer desperation, he dropped to his knees beside my hospital bed. His eyes filled with pleading. They've been causing trouble for a week now. I've had to sneak out just to stay alive. Only you can help me, Veronica. I frowned, crossing my arms defiantly. What am I supposed to do with this? Alexander's smile brightened, as if he thought I was finally conceding to his request. He took my hand and gently caressed it, his eyes brimming with hope. Leaning in, he seemed poised to kiss it, but I quickly pulled away, disgust flooding through me at his touch. Why should I help him after everything? Unfazed by my reaction, he pressed on, desperation dripping from his words. You only need to apologize to Colleen, he said, making it sound so simple. She told me that they'd stop once they receive your apology. So please, can you do this favor? No, I shot back, the words slicing through the air. Even now, Alexander was still choosing Colleen's side. Why not? His eyes clouded with confusion. If you're worried about having to apologize in person, there's no need. A video would suffice. Are you serious? I scoffed, rolling my eyes. Even if you knelt for the rest of your life, it wouldn't matter to me. After everything you've done, do you honestly think you still mean anything to me? Stop trying to convince me to let this go. Anger flashed across his face, shattering the desperate facade he had maintained. He stood up, his shadow looming over me, disdain evident in his eyes. Hatred glimmered as he declared, I'm doing this for your own good. Do you really think I won't involve your family in this? His voice dropped, turning icy and threatening. I'm warning you. If you don't help me, I'll drag you down with me. I'm not going down alone. Before I could even form a retort, a voice, deep and authoritative, cut through the air, startling us both. She won't be going down at all, the voice declared, chilling and deliberate. Not while I'm here. We spun toward the door as it creaked open, revealing the silhouette of my lawyer. But something in his stance sent a cold shiver down my spine. His eyes locked on Alexander, a faint, dangerous smile playing at the corner of his lips. I was taken aback when I saw Dominic. He had an unbeatable record, with countless cases won under his belt. Most people couldn't even get in touch with him, yet I could call him any time. It's all thanks to our family's connection. Dominic was the son of my mom's best friend, and had always treated me like I was part of his family. When Mom hired a lawyer for the divorce, she never mentioned it would be Dominic. It seemed beneath him he was a golden lawyer after all, someone far too prestigious for something as simple as handling divorce paperwork. The surprise must have been written all over my face as Dominic approached, a playful smile tugging at his lips. What are you doing here? I asked, trying to hide my shock. What else but you? He replied smoothly, stopping beside my hospital bed with a folder in hand. I was just here to work on your divorce papers, but it seems there's more to deal with. I blinked in confusion. What do you mean? Dominic's smile faded as his gaze turned cold, locking onto Alexander. The warmth he had moments before was replaced by an icy stare, aimed directly at my ex-husband. What Colleen did to you was assault, Dominic said, his voice firm. That's a crime, and I'll help you file charges against her. She'll end up behind bars. No, you can't do that, Alexander blurted, his voice laced with panic. He looked at me with blame and sneered, pointing at Dominic. Who is this guy? You both look like you knew each other. Is he the one you've been planning to be with after we divorce? Shut up, I snapped, anger tightening my chest, pushing the pain and frustration to the surface. I knew it, Alexander hissed, glaring at us. This whole divorce is a cover, isn't it? You just wanted to be with him. I clenched my fists, every muscle tense with anger. The aftermath of the accident still weighed on me, and his accusations only made the discomfort worse. My chest felt heavy, and the pounding in my head intensified. With all the strength I could muster, I pointed toward the door. Get out, I shouted, my voice trembling with rage. I don't ever want to see you again. Seeing my distress, Dominic moved quickly to calm me down. He gently took my hand, prying open my clenched fist, and began massaging it. His hands were large and warm, their softness radiating a sense of reassurance that slowly eased the tension in my chest. Don't let him leave just yet, Dominic said softly. Since you're both here, it's best to sign the divorce papers now so you won't have to see each other again later. I nodded, trying to compose myself. Where are the documents? Right here, he said, pulling out a neatly folded set of papers. Without hesitation, I signed them quickly, my pen scratching across the page in my hurry. I handed them back to Dominic, who glanced over them before turning to Alexander with a cold expression. Your turn. I'm not signing, Alexander insisted. You can't force me. Dominic's calm gaze met mine, his voice steady. Don't worry. I'll handle it. Dominic took a step forward, his scholarly appearance contrasting with the usual intimidating figures of the mafia. Yet, despite his smaller frame, the air around him was thick with power and confidence, more than enough to make Alexander, an heir to a mafioso family, feel outmatched. It's fine if you don't sign, Dominic said coolly, but I can't promise your safety. If I can throw your mistress in jail, what makes you think I can't put you behind bars too? You can't do that, Alexander shouted, fear creeping into his voice. I didn't do anything wrong. Really? Dominic chuckled darkly. Then I'll just make it look like you did. And I'll make sure the punishment is severe. The maximum life sentence sounds fitting. Alexander's face paled, all the confidence he once held slipping away. I could see it, the realization dawning on him. He was no longer in control, and he knew it. The forgiveness I had given him over the years was gone, and he finally realized I was ready to leave for good. Darling, he pleaded, his voice weak, eyes glassy. Please, just one more chance. No more Colleen. It'll be just us again, I promise. I looked away, the sight of him too exhausting to bear. The last piece of my patience snapped. I didn't even watch him sign, but when Dominic handed me the completed divorce papers, both of our signatures on the dotted lines, something inside me shifted. A weight lifted off my shoulders, and for the first time in years I felt free. My body, my mind, my soul, I was liberated. I had wasted too much of my life on Alexander, and now, it was time to live for myself. 3 months later, the case of Colleen Homer finally reached its conclusion. Alexander's POV. I had convinced myself that I didn't have feelings for Veronica, but when I found her on the brink of death, it felt like my world shattered. In that moment, I realized how wrong I had been. I rushed her to the hospital, desperate, and willing to sacrifice anything just to keep her alive. I spent the night in agony, pacing back and forth, waiting for news. When the doctors finally said she was stable, a wave of relief washed over me, but the ache in my chest wouldn't go away. Seeing her lying pale and unconscious in the hospital bed soothed my panic, but deepened my guilt. My heart screamed the truth I had been too blind to see. I loved her. Almost losing her made me realize just how much she meant to me. Thankfully, I hadn't signed the divorce papers yet, and now that she was out of critical condition, there was still a chance. I stayed by her side, waiting for her to wake up, so I could tell her how much I regretted hurting her. As I sat by her bedside, MV phone buzzed constantly with calls from strangers. They were threats from Colleen's family, along with people under Leonard's influence, making sure I didn't have a moment of peace. It had been like this for a week, sleepless nights filled with paranoia and growing irritation. The weight of the situation was crushing, and it felt like there was no escape. Through it all, none of Veronica's family had reached out. It was as if this was her way of silently letting go, leaving me to face the consequences of my actions alone. My days became consumed by a cold emptiness as I dodged death threats and tried to salvage the wreckage of my family's business. The dangers closing in on me were relentless. That's why, when the lawyer offered to help her with the divorce, I lost it. I lashed out, blaming her, blaming him, and accusing everyone around me of the mess I had caused. My anger spiraled, and I even found myself accusing Dominic and Veronica of having some kind of inappropriate relationship, despite knowing deep down that nothing of the sort was happening. I knew Dominic was here for Veronica's sake any man could see that. It wasn't until Veronica signed the divorce papers that reality finally hit me. The truth settled in, and I found it impossible to ignore. I begged her to stay, pleaded for one last chance, but she was firm in her decision. She left me with no choice but to sign the papers, and Dominic's intimidating presence didn't help either. Afterward, I walked out, my mind spinning. I knew Dominic was determined to keep Colleen in jail, and I didn't interfere. I could tell he was a powerful lawyer, and deep down, I understood that there was no saving her this time. It felt like a bitter taste of karma for the mistakes I had made. All I wanted was Veronica's forgiveness, clinging to the hope that we could somehow mend what was broken. But as the days passed, everything seemed to move toward an inevitable conclusion. It all ended in the courthouse. I stood as a witness to Colleen's trial, watching her desperately plead not guilty, throwing wild accusations at Veronica, who sat calmly across from her. The woman I once thought was pure and beautiful revealed herself as a monster. Even the friends I trusted had shown their true colors, just as cruel and toxic as her. I had become a mere spectator, watching Veronica rise and win the case with grace. It had been so long since I'd seen her this confident, this radiant. It reminded me of our high school days when her glow and her warmth first caught my eye, making me feel secure and wanted. Yet, I had wasted it all over the years, taking her for granted. When she left the courtroom, another man walked beside her. I noticed her hand, it was bare, just like mine had been for years, as I never wore our wedding ring. Regret crashed over me in waves, but it was too late. That night, I returned to the house we once shared. The coldness inside felt overwhelming, biting at me in a way I hadn't expected. It was nothing like the home I remembered, but then again, I didn't remember much. I had spent most of my time away with friends, with Colleen never here with Veronica. As I stood in the dim hallway, the landline rang. I ignored it, knowing full well it was likely more threats from Leonard's and Colleen's families. I wanted to start over, ready to lay everything in the line and beg Veronica for one last chance. But she had shut me down completely, comparing me to Colleen, who is selfish and undeserving of her. Though I didn't want to believe it, she was right. I didn't want to lose her, but in truth, I'd already lost her long before I realized it. After everything that had happened, my mom had suggested I take a vacation to recover both physically and mentally. I agreed, and we headed to a summer house by the sea. Life had been different since the divorce, and the freedom I now had felt strange after losing it when I married Alexander. But along with that strangeness came a deep sense of satisfaction, a newfound appreciation for life as I matured through the process. However, my peaceful days didn't last long. They were interrupted by Dominic's sudden appearance. While he wasn't directly disruptive, his presence alone was enough to command attention. His aura was so imposing that everyone around him noticed. Even my dad, who rarely commented on such things, remarked that Dominic would have made a perfect mafia leader if only he hadn't chosen to become a lawyer. Still, that hadn't lessened Dad's admiration for Dominic. If anything, it seemed to strengthen it, and I could tell Dad liked him a lot. Truthfully, I had liked Dominic since we were kids, but he always felt out of reach, and I was hesitant to risk our friendship. He was consistently there for me during tough times, making me feel safe. While he was a straight-A student, I was the carefree one, and we never really clicked on that level. That's when I met Alexander, who was the complete opposite of Dominic. But Alexander was infatuated with someone else, our senior, Colleen. Colleen was stunning and an incredible dancer. The queen of our campus. Alexander was head over heels for her, chasing her for what felt like ages until they finally got together. However, right after graduation, she left him to marry someone, a big shot from the underworld. I often wondered if she ever truly cared for Alexander. She seemed to abandon him for a guy she barely knew. Although it did give her an advantage in marrying someone from higher up, it wasn't necessary. Without Colleen around, Alexander and I gradually became friends, fell in love, and eventually got married. As I settled into my life with Alexander, Dominic and I drifted apart. I always thought Dominic was giving me space out of respect for my marriage. But when Alexander decided to let Colleen go, she came crawling back, and like a loyal puppy, he followed her around, doing everything she asked. His ego led him to believe his feelings for her were no more than pity. But everyone could see that his feelings for his high school sweetheart had never faded. I was naive, believing his reassurances time and again, until he had a baby with her, and I had to abort mine. I must have been lost in thought because I didn't notice Dominic calling my name. I snapped out of it when I felt something cold against my cheeks, nearly jumping from the unexpected sensation. A snort from him broke the moment, and I realized the icy soda in his hand was the culprit. "What are you doing?" I asked, feigning anger while touching my chilled cheeks. "I've been calling you for a while now, but you seemed deep in thought," he replied with a smirk, clicking his tongue in mock disappointment. "Is my company that boring?" Boring. I could never associate that word with Dominic. Despite his intimidating presence, he was quite charming and always made me laugh. These days spent with him helped me heal quickly, creating an illusion that I hadn't experienced any troubles at all. Even during moments when my mind would wander, he always brought me back, ensuring I didn't dwell on the past too much. I appreciated that deeply. It made my heart feel light and secure. My silence must have led him to think I found him dull, as he chuckled softly. Then, out of the blue, he confessed, "Do you know that I've always liked you?" I paused, processing his words, my eyes widening in disbelief. "What? No way, how can that be? How could it not be?" He looked away, seemingly afraid to see my reaction, a blush evident on his cheeks. I could tell he was nervous. Almost everyone had a crush on you at some point. But since you didn't take any of their advances, I thought you weren't interested in a romantic relationship. That? I could only face bomb. Of course, it was because I was crushing on him. Actually, I had long planned to ask you to marry me. But given your background, I didn't think I could just ask outright. Yet when I finally found the courage, you were already married. He scoffed, shaking his head. To a scum. Luckily, you divorced him. Gathering all his courage, he turned to face me, his expression serious. "Veronica, I want to ask you to be my wife. I can't let this opportunity slip away. Will you accept my proposal?" It had been years since I had seen Alexander. The last time was during a business transaction that felt more like a ghostly reunion. Alexander had appeared older than his years. The haggard lines on his face told stories of sleepless nights and burdens too heavy to carry. It was clear he had managed to save his company from the brink of collapse, severing ties with Colleen's family. Dad, however, remained furious about the whole situation and had announced that he would no longer engage in business with Alexander. After the deal was finalized, Alexander surprised me by reaching out to chat. I no longer feel any emotions at the thought of interacting with him again, but I quickly shut down the idea. I am married now, and being seen together with my ex-husband could easily lead to misunderstandings. "I'm sorry, Alexander. I can't." He hadn't pushed back, which had been a relief. Instead, he simply asked a question. "Are you happy with your life now?" I had taken a moment, the words hanging heavy in the air. I smiled, probably the last smile I would give him. "Yes," I finally replied, hoping my tone conveyed sincerity. I was happy, very happy. I had built a life with Dominic, one that filled the emptiness Alexander had left behind. That night, in a dimly lit room, Alexander scrolled through his social media late into the night, desperately trying to distract himself. After all, he could no longer sleep well ever since I left him. As he mindlessly flicked through the images, something caught his eye: my latest post. The picture featured me, radiant and glowing, alongside a small ultrasound image. I was beaming, filled with the kind of joy that felt almost foreign to me now, but I hadn't felt this alive in years. Dominic stood beside me, his arm draped around my shoulder, his face filled with pride. As Alexander stared at the photo, a wave of realization washed over him. The truth he had been avoiding slammed into him like a freight train. I had moved on. I was starting a family, living a life he could only dream of. The future we once envisioned together had shifted, and I was now building it with someone else. He felt a lump in his throat, an ache in his chest that was both familiar and new. With a shaky breath, he understood that he needed to let go of any lingering hopes he held for us. Blocking my account felt like severing a lifeline, but it was necessary. It was time to turn the page and finally close that chapter. Days turned into weeks, and I settled into my new routine, the joyful anticipation of motherhood filling my days with purpose. Meanwhile, Alexander poured himself into work, trying to channel his grief into something productive. He managed to keep his emotions buried beneath layers of corporate strategy and meetings, but the haunting memory of my smile and the warmth of our past never quite faded. As months passed, I felt a shift within me, a growing sense of stability and comfort in my life with Dominic. He was everything I needed, attentive, caring, and steadfast. One evening, as I watched Dominic prepare dinner, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number. I opened it. It read, "Hey, it's Alexander. I hope you're doing well." I stared at the screen, feeling nothing. Probably not expecting any reply, he typed again. "I just wanted to say that I'm happy for you. I saw your post, and I wish you the best." He must have felt the distance between us stretched into an almost palpable silence. I could sense the bittersweet ache in his words, the longing to connect despite the walls we had built. As I put my phone down, I looked at Dominic. I was happy, and I would fight for that happiness. Alexander would always be a past and nothing more. I built a family with Dominic. I wouldn't let the past consume me any longer. "Goodbye," I gave my last reply. With a deep breath, I turned my focus back to the present. Life was waiting, and I was ready to embrace it. Today's story is over. Thank you all for listening.